I'll call the meeting to order of the Harbor Gateway North Planning and Land Use Committee meeting at 6:37 p.m. Two of our committee members will be joining us shortly, but we can go ahead and get started.
Okay, I can take roll. Can you hear me okay, Rosalie?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Rosalie Preston,
Present.
Madge Nixon here, Craig Kusunoki,
Here.
Arby Powell,
Here.
Janisha Robinson, Rebecca Rodriguez, Angela Springs, and Luetta Watson.
Present.
Okay.
Okay, we do have one stakeholder that would like to make a general public comment on an item not on our agenda, and that is Dr. Edna Briggs from our District 5.
Sorry, can you hear me now? I was muted. I thought I had unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well, good evening, everybody. The reason I'm attending this meeting has to do with my, well, basically two issues. One, for 7 years now, I've been complaining about an illegal dumping situation that exists in our area. And number two, the end of August 27th, I attended a meeting sponsored by the Los Angeles City Attorney's Reparations Commission to talk about the reparation plan that they are developing and plan to implement throughout the city of Los Angeles. And I was shocked when I got there and they handed out this beautiful booklet, and it clearly indicated, and throughout the program, they focused only on council districts 8, 9, and 10. 15 was not listed anywhere. And so after that meeting, they convened 3 other meetings a couple of weeks ago in 3 different locations, I guess one in each of those districts. I attended one of the meetings, the one that dealt with the topic of environmental issues. And the people who led those meetings were mainly from the council district offices, and they limited the discussion to what was relevant to their areas only. So well, there was a physician at that meeting from Drew University who talked about the recent discovery, which they talked about yesterday on the news, the recent discovery of toxic substances in the Watts community that makes it now at the same level of toxicity as Flint, Michigan and Jackson, Mississippi. And so that same railroad track that, well, they claim that the toxicity resulted from, this doctor claims it resulted from Union Pacific Railroad coming through the neighborhood at night, dumping its waste along the railroad track in Watts. That same railroad track is within 3 crosses Hoover Street and is within about 3 blocks of my house, where that illegal dumping area is. And so, but I wasn't allowed to talk about that there. So my big question is, with this LA City Attorney's effort and focus on reparations, where is the 1-5?
Well, thank you for your comments, and we will bring this issue up with our council office. I know that our neighborhood council did have representatives from the reparations group at a Black History Month event in 2003 at the Rosecrans Recreation Center when they were doing their survey. And we did post information about getting involved and making comments on our website. and through our emails. So, but we will bring it up with our council office and possibly refer the issue of the contamination along the Union Pacific to our Environmental Justice Committee. Or start adding it to the Planning and Land Use Committee agenda. So thank you for bringing that up to us.
Okay.
Okay, did everyone look over the minutes from our last meeting in July?
Yes, you want a motion to accept that the minutes is read?
Yes, thank you, Arby. So need a second.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I can take the roll. Rosalie Preston,
Yes,
Madge Nixon, yes. Craig Kusanokii,
Yes.
RV Powell,
Yes.
and Louetta Watson.
Yes.
Okay,
okay, motion passes. Okay, well, the applicant still has not come on our meeting. So we will go on to item number 5. Which is a discussion of actions to take regarding the fall release of the final EIR for the Prologis, Vermont and Redondo project, which is a 3,400 and 340,298 square foot warehouse project at 15116, 15216 South Vermont Avenue and 747 to 861 West Redondo Beach Boulevard, such as new comment letters from the Plum Committee and possible town hall for stakeholders. So I did email the city planner who's overseeing the project, and she responded that there still is no date that for the release of the final EIR, that they're still working on compiling all the documents. So that gives us a little more time. 4 of us did meet in August with our city council member, Tim McCosker. Since the project began in 2017. And he, under the previous council person, so we were bringing him up to date. Hold on a second, I'm gonna see if I can forward the Zoom link to Rebecca Rodriguez, who's trying to log on. Okay, Rebecca's here now. So continuing with just so you know, Rebecca, our applicant hasn't shown up yet, so we moved on to item number 5, which is a discussion about possible actions to take in regards to the Prologis warehouse. The city planner who's overseeing the compilation of the final EIR has let us know by email that there still is no release date yet, and they're still compiling documents for that final EIR. So 4 of us did meet with Councilmember McCosker via, I think it was Google Meet, and went over key issues of the project that are of concern, including the air pollution impacts, the traffic impacts, the environmental justice impacts to that area, how the proposed warehouse site is surrounded by residential uses, a park, a school, senior care homes, and there's also the issue of the existing California Waste Services, which their trucks would also still use that section of Orchard north of Redondo Beach Boulevard. And I have to double check, but I believe the number of trucks that they're authorized is possibly 200 a day. And the warehouse would add a potential at least 700, over 700 big trucks per day. California Waste Services, most of their trucks are not the 18-wheelers, but so and we did point out also that there is water and soil contamination on site, and that whole issue has still not been resolved by the LA Regional Water Quality Board to their satisfaction. So, and Councilmember McCosker said that he was still open. He wanted to, make further study of the issue, and that he was willing to meet with us on site. So we have asked his scheduler to try to set up a meeting, and we're thinking it would probably be a Thursday afternoon around 4:30 when the traffic on Redondo Beach Boulevard is fairly heavy. And then also we can point out the various impacts. But assuming that we find out with enough advance notice when the final EIR is released, personally, I think the Planning and Land Use Committee needs to come up with another comment letter on the final EIR to see if it addresses the concerns that the neighborhood council and others have raised after the draft EIR was released, which seemed to have a lot of weaknesses in their analysis, including of the traffic impacts and the air pollution impacts. So we're going to need to be, I don't know if we should start a draft letter, because it's my understanding that when the final EIR is released, it will next go to the Plum Committee of the City Council for their review, and whatever comes out, it possibly could say that the Department of City Planning recommends approval. It might have approval with some conditions. It's really hard to know. And we do feel that our council member can play a role in what that recommendation is. So, some of us have been calling his office downtown to leave messages of hoping that he will not support the project. So anyway, there's going to be a very short time between release of the final EIR and when it goes to the plum committee. So, it's almost like a draft letter would need to be prepared. So the committee might have to have a special meeting and to get it to the board for approval. And then the other issue, or one of the other issues, is that I have to, because I was one of the two appellants after the City Planning Commission met in 2018 and approved the project, which was recommended by the Department of City Planning after the very minimal environmental review through the mitigated negative declaration process. So I and one of the other neighbors in my neighborhood filed an appeal, and finally, after a number of months, the state attorney general did send a letter to the LA city attorney pointing out that the environmental review of the project was very inadequate, that we were an environmental justice community and there should be a better environmental review, meaning a full environmental impact report. So we told the representatives from Prologis that we were not going to withdraw our appeal, and therefore Prologis reluctantly said they would conduct a full EIR. So that's where we are. It's been all since, see, that was 2018, 19. It's actually been 6 years since that letter from the state attorney general. So now we're in the final phases of this whole process. And meanwhile, the state attorney general's office has issued 2 versions of their guidelines on warehouse siting, because so many communities, especially out in the Inland Empire, have been impacted by creation of these huge warehouses near residential. And frankly, when you look at those guidelines, this project would meet very few of them. One of the guidelines is to have buffers to keep the project 1,000 feet from sensitive uses such as residential and parks, which this project does not do. And I just read today that out in, well, I think it's Riverside County, Bloomington, a group of environmental justice groups, and they were using Earth Justice as their attorney. They had filed suit about approval of a huge warehouse project. And the judge in that case, well, he didn't agree with everything that the applicants said about the EIR, that it was very defective, but he did agree with a number of the points. So therefore, it has to go back for further environmental review, which has never happened before with any of those projects. So there is a lot more awareness of the impacts. And so in any case, one of the issues is I need to consult with the city attorney for neighborhood councils to see if I still have to be recused from voting on this issue. And the other aspect is that if it does get to the plum committee and then eventually the full city council, the neighborhood council can have a representative there who can speak for up to 5 minutes, I believe. Whereas other attendees of these hearings can only have 1 minute. So ideally, I would like to be that representative, but if I am still required to recuse myself, we have to come up with someone else who's going to be willing to be prepared to make the neighborhood council's case. So I just wanted to put that out there. Also, it looks like once the final EIR comes out, we should probably have a town hall, probably by Zoom, that would go over the basics of the case, because, it's been so many years, so that all of our current stakeholders are aware of what the issues are and, how they can weigh in. So
Yeah,
any other suggestions or comments?
I have a question. What about the water board? When they do the final draft, will the water board have a say in it also? Or, because that's dealing with cleaning up the contamination and everything. So they will have to put that plan in there too?
Well, yeah, we should ask the water board, did they ever make comment? I did, when I looked into the draft EIR recently, before we had our meeting with Councilmember McCosker, I saw that in the draft EIR, they had included 2 different reports from the LA Regional Water Quality Board, but they were older and they were from before the current engineer was assigned to the case, and his comments and analysis are a lot more detailed and rigorous than the previous engineer. It seems to me from, what I was reading. So that would be one issue that we would want to make sure that they were including the latest information. Because just for everyone on the committee, the Regional Water Quality Board got involved with the site in early 2000, at the time that Sam's Club, which is owned by Walmart, had received approval from the city to build a new Sam's Club on the site. And as part of doing their due diligence before the construction, they had an assessment, and that's when it was learned that because of the previous industrial uses there, particularly from Pacific Electric Cord that manufactured electrical wiring, they had the solvent that they used to clean the wiring had leached into the groundwater. So because Pacific Electric Cord was no longer in business, and I don't know who the actual owner of the property was at the time of Pacific Electric Cord, but apparently the regulation is that whoever is the owner of the property at the time that the contamination is discovered, they become the responsible party. So it's the owner before the current owner, and they're known as APA3, and they're based at the Torrance Airport. They then hired a consultant company called Waterstone, and Waterstone did an analysis. They did testing, and they created a map of where the groundwater contamination was. And so they installed, I think, about 7 groundwater monitoring wells, which in the beginning were checked fairly frequently. Now it might only be a couple times a year. And then the reports are made to the water board. But when and of course, in the beginning, this consultant company maintained that over time, the bacteria and whatever else in the water would eat up the contamination, and it would gradually decline. But when the new engineer took over responsibility for the project and he looked at their analysis, he pointed out that that the way they had been calculating the amount of remaining pollution was faulty, and that actually the groundwater contamination had increased. So they, and that the groundwater contamination was moving from the northeast corner of the property closest to California Waste Services, and it was moving in a southeasterly direction. So I think they closed, or they are able to close 2 of the northern wells, or they wanted to. And then this consultant company, Waterstone, created 2 new groundwater monitoring wells, which one is near Farmer Boys and the other one is in the District 2 neighborhood, a little south of Redondo Beach Boulevard. And just north of 154th Street, it's in an alley, a small alley that runs parallel to the 110 freeway southbound on-ramp. And one of the neighbors showed me the covering. It's like a sewer covering. It's metal, but it's very narrow or small diameter. It's maybe only 8 or 12 inches in diameter. And then that's what they use for access to put a probe in to test the water quality. But the current engineer has also asked that required that the consultant company do probing on the east side of the Harbor Freeway. I'm not quite clear if it's on the grounds of the Korean Presbyterian Church or more along the DWP easement that's right on the east side of the freeway. But somewhere around there, they've got to do the measurement and possibly put in another monitoring well over there. So my neighborhood is a little concerned, the District 2, because there's also going to be more testing to see if the plume is wider than what they originally thought. And so all of that is still up in the air. And then in the, I believe it was in the documents related to the draft EIR, it maintains that maybe in the early 2000s, tons of soil, because the contaminated soil is more on the side closer to Vermont, tons of soil were removed. And so but still some needs to be cleaned up. However, no one in my neighborhood can ever remember. I mean, if you were removing tons of soil, it would take a lot of trucks right on Redondo Beach Boulevard, and no one can ever remember seeing that. So we really wonder if that was actually done. And so that's something else to try to figure out.
I don't know
So
because it's concrete over there.
I know, and that's the other thing. It seems like it's all covered with concrete, so how could you have gotten tons of soil out of there? So there's a lot of questions we have to, that needs to be asked.
So, Rosalie, I have a question. How long could this potentially drag out? I mean, or is it in our best interest that it takes as long as possible for those of us who don't want the warehouse to happen?
Well, personally, I think that the longer it takes to finalize the final EIR, it is in our best interest.
Okay, that's good to know.
So, but we might want to start the committee drafting, a comment letter, assuming, based on the draft EIR and our previous comment letters, and then, if the final EIR comes out and some of the things have been improved, we can always adjust our comments. Okay, so yes,
Oh, I'm sorry.
anything else?
I was going to ask, do you think it would be helpful if like we had a running document that we could share among the committee to voice our concerns and then kind of like tailor that to have it ready for a comment?
Yes, that would be a good idea. And so I'll work with our secretary, Madge, to create something that we can share. Okay, if there's no other comments on this issue, then our presenter, our applicant has arrived. So we'll go back to item number 4, which is the presentation by Raman Shilian, 3D General Construction on 74 unit, 3-story apartment building with 111 parking spaces at 1134 East 120th Street, which is right at the corner of Central Avenue. So let's see, did Raman? I'm trying to promote him to a panelist. Okay. Okay, Mr. Shilian, we're ready for your presentation, and we can screen share if you would like.
Hello,
Oh, hello.
how are you? Good evening.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, I'm ready.
Okay, just give a brief summary of your project. We know that you purchased a number of parcels there at the corner of the southwest corner of 120th and Central Avenue, and that your part of the project will be to demolish the existing older buildings. And do you have a timeline?
So I'm a general contractor here. And AR Holding is owner of the property. And he's placing financing in place, and we're looking towards 1st of December of doing the demolition. The project is 74 units, all affordable housing, 3-story, and what else?
Excuse me,
Yes.
Mr. Shillian, do you have a visual presentation so we could see what this project looks like? By you just reading off or telling us what it is, we have no idea. The concept, we need to see that, please.
Lou,
I
Lou,
sent-
the rendering was sent.
And also I
After he
shared
is,
the,
yes,
and
after
I
he's
saw I'll
finished
share
his
the whole plan, yes.
yeah, after he shared his introduction, we'll screen share the rendering that was sent out to the committee. And
I did not receive it.
okay, well,
So as far as you guys were concerned about the outside, the color of the building, we're pretty much open to do what committee is approved, and you know, we're open with that. Because I think the way it is a little bit dark, and we can use some grayish or white color. I think it's a better choice. It's about 40,000 square foot of a building, and as I said, the 74 unit, 3-story building. The entrance is gonna be from 120th Street. That's why the address is from 134 East 120th Street. I'm ready for any questions you guys have.
okay, let me try to share that rendering.
Do you want me to share it, Rosalie? I have it up.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Looks like you have to enable that.
Oh, right, okay. Can you do it now?
Yeah, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is it, correct?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay.
So this is a view from Central.
So the shorter side with the entrance is on 120th.
Right.
That's this side over here. To the right. Where's the parking located?
That's what I'm saying. So I was amazed that you guys mentioned parking. These are all affordable housing with no parking.
Oh, there's no parking at all?
No parking at all.
Where is the resident supposed to park? How could you build something with no parking?
Well, that's what the new ordinance, I mean, from past 3 years, I mean, they giving people this, you know, option of doing more units with no parking for
Now-
affordable housing. That's what the city, you know, promoting.
Yeah, but then would you move in somewhere with no parking?
Ma'am, as I said, I'm a contractor. I'm not a owner of this building.
Okay. Mm.
So a person named Steve is on the call. Is he part of your group?
Not really, no.
Okay.
I mean, I have like over 5 other projects from a different owners, one on Vernon, one on Florence, one on Western, and they all without parking. So I'm amazed that you guys didn't know about this affordable housing that for the past 3-4 years, city is pushing people to buy lands and make buildings like this.
Well, we've had other affordable projects, but they haven't. Maybe the amount of parking doesn't seem sufficient to us, but they've at least had enough for half the units. Because the public transportation in this area is not very great. I guess there's one bus, but there's it's not like it's really near a metro stop. And there's no amenities in this area, like there's no grocery stores. So it just makes it, you know, difficult for the residents to get adequate services
My hand is
with
up.
Lou.
Yes. Did the applicant reach out to us? Because I think we should invite the applicant to attend our neighborhood council meeting. Because this is, there are a lot of problems here. First of all, there's no articulation with this building. It looks like a prison. Nothing, and the colors are horrible. And I think we need to hear from the applicant, not the builder or the construction person.
So Mr. Schillian is the contact person that our field deputy for Council District 15, Nicholas Chavez, referred to us. And I don't know if the owner is available, but we can find out.
Yes, I think that would be a good idea. We do not have to accept that. We can ask that the applicant attend our neighborhood council our PLU meeting, because we have questions. And this rendering of what this building is gonna look like, it looks like a prison.
As I said from beginning, I mean, this coloring, we don't like it either. So you're definitely going to change the coloring to white and gray.
Well, maybe a lighter gray, but
The lighter
had,
gray. No,
yeah.
definitely white with the lighter gray. Nothing dark or nothing, you know, we don't like the coloring either.
Right, but the least amount of white, because we find that the white paint eventually, you know, it gets streaked with other runoff from the roof and stuff, so.
What
if,
about
you know,
articulation?
right, are you able to do something around the windows just to make it a more interesting design?
Of course, yes. Yes, we can do. We can have some nice design around the windows, or even break the stucco with the channeling. This way it gives it some, you know, different feeling. You know, if you've seen those stucco with channeling in between.
I this is Rebecca. I'm sorry. You know what? I totally agree with Lou, and I'm very concerned. I think, the aesthetic of the building is one thing, right? We can work through that. But my biggest concern is on the agenda, it said that it had 111 parking spaces. It's 74 units. If you figure that in each of those apartments, there are 2 cars, we have potentially 150 cars. Where are we supposed to fit all of those vehicles? I mean, if you look around this building, a lot of it is within red, right? And there are already restrictions, around the building in terms of where people can park. So I just can't imagine like how this is going to work. And let's say potentially there's only 1 car per household. That still is a lot of cars. And how is that going to affect the surrounding community? So I'm truly concerned about that.
And Mr. Schillian is saying that there's no parking, but on the summary sheet, it showed that there was.
Yeah, and that's a huge problem because aesthetically you can redesign the building, you can fix you can repaint it a different color, you can make it look more appealing. But the point is like, how is it going to look with hundreds of cars, or more than 100 cars like around it? Or even if it isn't directly around it, what happens to those residents that live in close proximity to that building? I can't imagine that they could build this without providing at least 1 parking space per unit.
I'm gonna pull up that plan here.
The summary sheet.
Yeah, because it's a little confusing. Can you all see this planning sheet now?
Not yet. Oh, here it is. Yeah.
And it shows a parking calculation. I don't know if this is the right breakdown in terms of units, 8 studios and 66 1-bedrooms. That's how you get to the 74.
So basically they have allowable building area, and what's requires by by zoning, and we have a ED1 from the mayor, we have the TOC. So each program, they have their own incentive that these owners and the builders they use. So the recent ED1, I guess they call it, these are all affordable units that requires no parking. So the city pushing people to build these apartments because of the shortages.
Is this location in CD 15 or CD 8?
15.
We have no TOCs.
Yes, it is. It is.
What?
That corner,
Is that the Southeast community plan?
community plan, right? It's under a CPIO designation, and I believe it's a TOC. If you enter the address on Zemus.
I move that we table this issue and invite the applicant to come and make a presentation to our neighborhood council, or to our planning and land use committee.
I second that.
Well, there was no vote scheduled tonight, so. And I see that our Council District 15 Planning Director Pamela Thornton is here. I don't know if Pamela has any comments, but there are going to be a lot of bicycle parking spaces, correct?
Yes.
It's so interesting that the bike, it seems like it is a requirement, but the parking is not a requirement.
Right, and some of our projects, we've asked that the amount of bicycle parking be reduced, and so a few more parking spaces could be included.
Does anyone feel like I do, that this is a waste of precious time and that we really do need to hear from the applicant? Am I the only one that feels that way?
No, I feel that way too, Lou.
Okay, Pamela Thornton wants to speak. Let's see.
Yeah,
good
I
evening.
agree with you too, Lou.
Good evening. This is Pamela Thornton from the 1-5 Council District. So I'm listening in to the conversation here, and I agree. I just wanted to state for the record that I have not received a briefing of the project as of yet. I did request one. I haven't received that. I had not seen these plans. I've only been on site to the site regarding the current condition of the property, but not to discuss the actual development site as proposed here tonight. So I agree with the comments that are being stated, and I'm thankful that as a committee, you are voicing your opinion. And I have requested a briefing via email. I just did that as I was listening to this. So let me know if I could help in any way. But right now, I don't have any additional comments. But if this is an ED1 project, based on the language of that ordinance, they are not required to have parking, which is unfortunate. And so the discussion about how they'll solve for parking is still something that's open as far as the discussion with community, especially the adjacent residents, to see how that's going to work. Because like this project and other projects, the overflow of parking into the residential area has sparked quite a debate among existing homeowners or other tenants of other properties that exist already. So these are very valid points that you're raising. So I just wanted to say that for the record. So thank you for allowing me to speak.
And just before Mr. Schillian goes, it looks like on the top of the building, there's going to be a roof garden. Is that accurate?
That's right. These are like open spaces with some planting and sitting area.
And I just want to point out to the committee that not only is this building proposed, but on the northeast corner of 120th and Central Avenue, that corner, well, there was sort of an application. I don't know, the owner is not using it for housing right now, but there's a potential for another apartment building there and one just north on Central Avenue and 119th on the east side, where there's a 4-unit, a 1-story duplex type building where people have lived there for a long time. It's from the late 40s, early 50s. And those are the people who are being evicted for a new project that also would have no parking. So it isn't just this one building, there's gonna be a number potentially in the future. So maybe somehow there's gotta be an improved public transportation or van service required so that people can get around and get to the amenities that they need. Okay, Pamela, did you have any other comment or?
Yeah, I did have a comment. Please make sure that you, I know you take copious notes, but make sure that you send me the notes from this meeting regarding this specific project. So I can be aware of what the specific concerns were that were raised tonight. And I'm gonna look into the entitlements and all of the specifics that were raised tonight. So I just wanted to
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so question, Pam.
Yeah.
Is there a way that get to the mayor's office about this parking, even though they passed the ordinance of, you know, with the housing and everything and no parking? And due to the, you know, crisis of building homes and everything, I don't know if they considered how this impacted the community. And also, you know, because it's a big concern and the owners really, I don't know if we had reached out to have a meeting with us and to discuss it, you know, while they're in the
Right.
process of building, you know, and I think that's not really being conducive of reaching out to the communities and so we can work on this together.
Right, I agree. And also, Nicholas Chavez and I met with the neighboring community on the unincorporated county side of the street, that were very concerned and raised some of their concerns about what was being proposed. So the applicant rep that's on the phone, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, but I would
Rami.
also, yes, hello. I would also suggest that we have some outreach to that side of the street because it's still part of community. I'm sorry, I'm getting an Amber Alert. Hold on a sec.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all getting. And I
Okay.
wanted to also point out that, and Pamela, you remember that from the past. Remember the apartment complex on Vermont Avenue that Steve Stepakis
Yes.
proposed so many years ago? And first it was going to be condos and then he turned it into small lot homes. Well, it finally opened a few months ago and he really changed things, although he said it was according to what building and safety required. But in the end, he's renting them and he created like one unit apartments within the bigger unit somehow or other, and he's renting them separately. And so the nearby apartment building let me know that even though each unit has, well, it was supposed to be a 2-car garage, but they were advertising it as a 3-car garage. The parking from that building alone on Vermont now is just overwhelming. And so it's making parking for the other apartment buildings very difficult. And of course, a lot of the apartment residents come into the R1 neighborhood to park
Right.
on those streets. So it's just a cascading effect and it is a
Right.
real quality of life issue.
Right. So I think this is a good conversation so that the applicant and the owner understand what the community currently are facing. And so, you know, I'm on both sides, so I get it from the property owner stand. They want to build something, they feel that they're bringing forth a quality project. But this is what happens when you don't have community involved at the pre-development stage of the design, right? And oftentimes if that happens, you can kind of solve for these things and be able to give a quality product that's going to be a win-win on both sides for community, the prospective residents, and for the builder or owner. So I agree with the parking overflow issue. That's something that I see in our district that has become very overwhelming for a lot of the area. So I don't agree with the fact that some folks believe that quote unquote low income residents don't have cars. I've heard that so many times within the industry. And I don't believe that that's true. And to go back to the question regarding ED1 and whether or not the mayor's team will make any exceptions to the rules, I can check in with her housing person and pose these questions, and I can get back with you to see. But I think that it's important too, if this is how the PLU committee feels, please advocate and write a letter directly to the mayor to voice your opinion about it. It serves better when it comes directly from the neighborhood council and the stakeholders. But I will follow up as requested to get the information you ask.
And one other issue, Pamela, in regards to the ED1 projects, I can't remember how we even heard about this. If we saw a demolition notice or we just heard through Nicholas Chavez about the, the issues of the abandoned buildings being vandalized, etc. But we, Mr. Schillian did, after we had his contact through Nicholas, he did send us all of the construction drawings and the rendering, but we've never seen, like in the old days, the basic application. And I don't know if they'd create those anymore for the ED1 project. So without a case number, that's something else. You can't follow it on the city Department of City Planning website. So that's another whole issue.
Okay, so I will follow up on that, because one thing that has been happening is that any application that's filed for, our office is supposed to get notified. So I do typically get any discretionary permit that's applied for, I get some kind of referral notice for that. I also get applications for cannabis, uses. We get those, and then we get demolition permits. But that's a good point that you're raising, because specific to ED1 projects, I'm not seeing that. So that's something that I can follow up on to make sure that council offices receive notice, as well as the neighborhood council area that project falls within.
Right,
that's
and
a good
even
point.
though it's an ED1 project, it needs to have some kind of a case number, like
Well,
an
it should.
ED1 number, yeah, so
Yeah,
it
it
can be
should.
tracked.
Right.
Because
I agree.
with other projects, when there's case numbers in the future, you can look up the documents online, but with these you cannot.
Yeah, so I will find out, because I think maybe it's a disconnect, because that's a mayor's directive, and they've taken the control of the processes that once would be directly in planning. And I don't think it goes through the regular planning process. They have another type of intake. And I don't know at what point the case number is assigned. But it's a good point that you're raising, and I will find out.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Schillian, thank you very much for attending.
Thank you,
and
everyone.
we'll
Thank
be
you,
in
Mr.
in
Schillian.
touch.
And if you can reach out to me, Mr. Schillian, so I can have a briefing with you, it would really be great. We can do that.
Sure.
Okay,
Sure.
thank you.
Would love to. Thank you. Have a good night,
Okay.
everyone.
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, so someone named Steve is here. I just wanted to find out if you're one of our stakeholders. Did you have something you wanted to?
No, I'm not a stakeholder.
Bring it.
I'm a resident in, I guess part of the District 3, I think.
Oh, okay, we refer to you as a stakeholder.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just tuned in right now. I just got home, so I
Okay, all right, you're on our email list, I guess.
believe so.
Okay, so
Okay.
explain, Rosalie, by definition, what a stakeholder is or who a stakeholder is.
So in the neighborhood council system, a stakeholder is anyone who lives within the neighborhood council boundaries, either in a house or an apartment, or works at a business within the boundaries, owns property within the boundaries, or is a community interest stakeholder, which is someone who belongs to a nonprofit that's located within the boundaries or some other organization, such as a parent group at one of our schools.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so if
That
you
covers a
live
lot of
within
that
District
covers a lot
3,
of people.
right? Yeah, thousands of people. Harbor Gateway North, it's our understanding that we represent 10,000 households, so, it's something like 37,000 people of all ages, so.
I see. Wow.
And that's not including the people who work within the neighborhood, the businesses, etc.
Wow.
So,
Well, I'm glad I'm able to tune in.
okay, great. All right, so we're moving on to the other updates on other planning and land use issues. So 6A, the new date for a community meeting on the 2025 California Waste Services Cal Recycle permit renewal. We were working with Council District 15 and we were going to set up the community meeting in September. But at the Rosecrans Recreation Center gym, but that didn't work out, so we're looking for a new date.
May I ask a
And,
question regarding that?
yes,
Is Nicholas on the line?
no,
He's not? Okay. So what are you looking for are you looking for it to be like specifically in a certain part of the district closer to where CWS is actually located?
yes. So
Okay.
that so that the impacted residents are able to attend
Okay, so
more
can you
more
have it?
easily.
Is it possible to host it where you used to have your meetings right there on Redondo Beach Boulevard? Is it a funding issue? I'm just trying to figure out how we can support
Right.
to this happen sooner.
Right, because currently the Rosecrans Rec is holding sports in the gym at night, so if we try to rely on that, the meeting might not happen until November. We can ask our management of the building. The problem is, I mean, there is the room where we used to meet, but we have to get permission from that organization to use it. And in the past, it's been a little bit difficult to do that. For our board retreat, we were able to use another room, but they may be leasing out those spaces. So that's the issue. And, if it's held at the gymnasium, it just makes it easier for people just to walk over from those nearby streets.
I
And
see.
actually,
I was just
yeah,
trying to figure it out. So would you need to have like a mic and a podium and use of any type of like projector or anything for a presentation? Or is it more
Uh,
like a round table discussion?
It's really a roundtable at this point that we were told that by Cal Recycle that the actual paperwork for the permit doesn't come out until January, but we wanted to hold a meeting before then just to hear again the community concerns, which of course include the dust impact and actually noise. The noise has really gotten worse, and violations of their hours of operation, for example. And then and at the community meeting, have someone from the local enforcement agency under building and safety and also AQMD seem to be interested. I did ask if Cal Recycle could be there, but they said that isn't part of their mandate.
Okay, well,
So,
follow up with me. I can
okay,
I can make the request. So let me know, because I was offering or making the recommendation that if it was something that you needed to have faster, that maybe depending on what's happening at the park, if it was done like earlier in the day, maybe but see, now you have state people, they don't work on Saturdays. That's usually a challenge. But it would be nice if it could be like a Saturday morning meeting and we did it outside and we had our pop-up tents. We could probably have a meeting like that as an alternative. And then I thought about our enclave office, but if you want to do it right there, some people may think that's too far.
yes, I think, yeah.
But if we needed to do that, that is an option for
Okay,
you.
that's
If
good.
push comes to shove.
Okay, we'll be in touch on that possibility. Okay, then on the 6B update on the Garner J1 well, 809 West 126th Street, the permit issue, odor complaint and drilling impacts. We recently, one of our former board members and a stakeholder moved back to his home on 126th Street, and he had been someone who was very active in reporting to us in the past when the Garner well was first re-drilled about 11 years ago on the impacts. He's someone who had oil coming up in his backyard. And I did visit him to give him the numbers that Edgar Macedo in the Department of City Planning, who oversees zoning with the oil drilling, had given us. And anyway, when I saw that there are structural cracks in that home, not as bad as the home on 129th Street, but they are there showing signs of subsidence. But when I stepped out of the house to go to my car, this was a Saturday evening about 7 o'clock, I could smell this odor, and it was not natural gas. It was like an oily gas or petroleum smell of some kind. So I did call AQMD on their cut smog toll-free line and left a message with my name and telephone number. And on the following Tuesday, a very young female inspector called me back and asked me if I could still smell the odor. And I had to explain that I was reporting it for a different location than my house. And she said that she would be in the area the following day anyway, and so she would come by and check it out. So she called me later that week and said when she was there, there was no odor, which I've been told it is intermittent. And then the following week, she called me again and said that she had called the owner and he had, well, she had thought I was talking about 7 o'clock in the morning of a Saturday, but the owner said that, oh, he thought it was caused because there's a big crude oil tank on the property that runs between 126th and 125th Street. And he thought that the contractor who removes the crude oil that's been pumped into that tank for wherever it goes after that had connected in a way without a vapor barrier. You know, he wasn't very careful in using that, and that's what caused the odor. But, you know, there was no big truck there that night. So I explained that to her and she was gonna follow up. But anyway, we need to get residents on that street. I have talked with the woman who lives to the east of the oil drilling facility on 126 and in the past, and she told me she does smell odors occasionally, and I had urged her to make the call. But on the second time that the young inspector called, she did say to me, and we've heard this before, but that oil well is not permitted through CalGEM at the state level. But she said it is registered with the AQMD, which is very odd. And because I have learned over time that every oil well has to have monitoring, regular monthly monitoring reported to the AQMD. The problem is that these oil companies use a contractor. So you kind of wonder about the reliability of what they're monitoring. But however, in the past, in talking with the AQMD and their representative for the area, he told me that the 809 West 126th Street is not, and also all the wells have these AP numbers, that well was not being monitored by the AQMD, that it was a different drilling because they're also extracting natural gas, and I don't know if it's from a different well, but the well they have on the AQMD site has an address on 125th Street, but when you put that address into CalGEM, there is no such well. So there's something very odd going on, and we've been trying to work with the state and the city petroleum administrator to figure out how we can force this well to get permitted, because unless it's permitted, you do not have the drawing, the plan of where the drilling goes. And if we had that, which we believe they're doing slant or directional drilling that's impacting homes further to the south, we don't have any proof of that. So we're going to attempt again to contact the petroleum administrator and someone in CalGEM to figure out how to address this. Meanwhile, the city 2 years ago, the ordinance was supposed to go into effect that prohibited any new drilling in the city of Los Angeles and started the phase out process for all wells. It would be a 20-year phase out. And I believe that's why the J1 Garner well was re-drilled 2 years ago to try to, get in ahead of that deadline. But what happened was the oil interest challenged that ordinance, And a judge ruled about a month ago that the city's ordinance could not be in effect because regulation of oil drilling was a state function. So that was a big blow, but then, and he just ruled about a week or so ago. However, today it was in the LA Times that Governor Gavin Newsom signed the AB 3222, I believe. And that is a state law now that allows local jurisdictions such as the city of LA to have their own ordinances regarding oil wells. So that was some good news, and we hope maybe it will help us in this situation. And also there were some other bills passed that you know, will help us with the wells that are no longer being used to get them properly closed up. So Pamela, did you have a comment or? Okay, then going on to the update on opening of the Weingart Willows, 14032 South Vermont Avenue. I emailed Ben Rosen from the Weingart Foundation, and he said that now the move in, you know, we can see driving by that a lot's been done to that property. He said that now the residents will not be moving in until early October, it looks like, and so the grand opening would probably be early November, and he's going to let us know when that is scheduled. On 6D, the reopening of the Arco gas station, I've tried calling the owner, Nancy Koskos, but
Hello? I don't hear you anymore.
I hear you, Pamela.
I think Rosalie lost audio.
Yes, I was referring to Rosalie. I don't hear anymore.
I guess Rosalie will have to come back in.
okay, now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so some weird Zoom glitch. So, did you hear the summary of the Weingart Willows?
No, I think we missed that part.
Okay. So I was in touch with Ben Rosen from the Weingart Foundation. He said we can all, you know, those of us driving by the property can see that it looks like it's getting ready to open, but he said that the new residents won't be moving in until early October.
That's right. Sorry, Rosalie. It was the Arco gas. We did hear that one.
Okay, so the Arco Gas, I reached out to the owner, Nancy Koskos, and she hasn't responded. It looks like it's really close to reopening. You know, they had a big setback because they finally got all their permits, and including from LADWP on the type of device they needed for the electrical, and installed everything, and then the, vandals broke in to steal all the electrical for the wiring and metal. And there was more graffiti, so now they've hired security to be there at night and they have to replace everything. So I don't know, hopefully it's gonna be October that it finally reopens. Because they'll be open 24 hours a day. And then that should prevent any type of future vandalism. On the Rexford Industrial, I emailed the planner for the County of Los Angeles, and she said that it's been a very slow process of getting the approvals through. Because just like the city of LA, the county building and safety people are very understaffed, I believe. So at this point, she's saying that she's hopeful that the public hearing will happen sometime in December before the end of the year, but it may not be until January. But she'll let us know when that public hearing date is set. So any other planning and land use issues that people are aware of? Okay, Steve, did you have anything to comment on, or?
Yeah, I hate to go back on the agenda, but on the 6A for the California Waste Service
Yeah,
recycling place, was there a date that the next meeting was going to be attending?
no, we're gonna be working with Council District 15 to try to set something up. We had hoped it would be in September, before it starts to get too dark, and also it was gonna be after the Rosecrans Recreation Center's Summer Night Lights programs had ended and before any other use of the gym, but we didn't manage to do that. So
Okay.
yeah, so we're gonna consider various alternatives, but
So
So
maybe
do-
postpone. Is it postponed
Yeah.
until the next meeting, I'm guessing?
well, we're hoping to do it maybe October, November.
Okay.
So which street do you live on?
I'm actually right behind it.
Okay,
Yeah,
are
I
you
think it's
on that
149th
cul-de-sac?
Street.
149th, okay. Yes,
Yeah.
because definitely once the meeting is set up, we're gonna have a flyer to deliver along 149th, 148th Place, some of the other nearby streets, and even on the other side of the freeway, because of the noise issue, we found on another issue, we found that a resident on 146th Street near Figueroa could hear the beeping noise at night, and
Oh wow. Yeah, that's
yeah,
pretty
so-
far on the other side of the street. But
right.
even, I don't know if you guys could hear this, but it's pretty bad right now. Oh,
Does it sound
just-
like the containers being dropped or smashing
Um,
noises or?
yeah, like if like a backhoe was to drop everything on the load from like 20 feet maybe. Oh,
Right, and that's something we've learned from some of the other projects is that there's a noise level for residential areas, which is in decibels, 45 decibels. For industrial areas, it can be higher, and unfortunately, the California Waste Services is zoned industrial, but it would seem if it impacts the residential area, that they should be held to a lower amount of noise, and it's, the noise issue has really increased in the last year, because sometimes I've been on 149th in the daytime and I can't believe how loud it is. So that's
this will-
something we want to address with their permit renewal.
This will probably go until maybe like 10:30ish maybe.
Right, they're supposed to, their hours of operation are till 10 o'clock. But, and so if you can email us at info@harborgatewaynorth.org. So we
Okay.
have your email, because we want to be sure we get you some information. We have a basic flyer on that business and their hours of operation and the numbers to call when there's violations.
Oh, I
Because,
see.
yeah, it's important to get things on the record. Try to get things on the record. Yeah, so info@harborgatewaynorth.org. And then we
Okay.
could, yeah, follow up with you on.
I think that's all I wanted.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll adjourn our meeting at 8:10 and meet again on the 4th Thursday of October.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for attending.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.